Hey everybody, Peter Zeihan here coming to you from Florida. Sorry, no beach scene today. I'm kind of in a bit of a hurry, but a lot of people have written in expressing an interest in what's going on in European elections, and since that happens so rarely, I figure I would cover a little bit of that today. The short version is that we've got this thing called the European Parliament, which technically is the legislative arm of the European Union, and they have elections every few years. They just completed them, and in Italy, Germany, and France, the hard right racked up significant gains, significantly higher in France and Germany than the ruling party did. And so the question, of course, is this a game changer? Let's start with the Germans. The German government under Scholz is a three-party coalition that is very weak because the three parties agree on very little. So whenever something happens in Europe, the three parties have to get together and have a coalition meeting to hammer out a common position before they start bringing in decisions with other countries. So it's a long, laborious process. It's really tedious. And because the coalition is so weak, and because the Chancellor of Germany, Olaf Scholz, is a weak leader, Germany has basically vanished from being a significant player in most European affairs, or at least not very much of a leader like it used to be. In the case of Italy, you've got a government led by Meloni, who actually is of the hard right, if you want to use a term that some people find is a little bit weird. And so when her party did well, everyone's like, oh, she's the up-and-coming leader, and there might be something to that. And then third, you've got France, which, as always, is a special case. In France, again, the leading party under President Macron, did very poorly. And it was the National Front, which is kind of a traditional rightist party, that did very well. Macron took this as kind of a personal insult to his view of everything and called snap elections in France. So France will now have full parliamentary elections in order to figure out who's going to run the country. Now, there's a lot of if, ands, and buts that go with this. But basically, France is going to have elections less than 2 weeks after the European parliamentary elections results, which is not a lot of time to get anything shaped up. The criticism that a lot of folks have is that Macron is a little arrogant. Like, he's a French president. Of course he's a little arrogant. That's not a reasonable criticism. Certainly it's nothing new. And so what is in play here? Well, we've got kind of two things you need to keep in mind. First of all, the European Parliament is not all that. It basically is only responsible for one thing, and that is saying whether or not the European Commission, which is the kind of the executive arm of the EU, is allowed to stand. They can vote it down if a new one is formed, like we will be seeing here in a few months. They can say, no, we reject this slate of commissioners, and that's really all the power they've got. So don't read this for more than it is, because it's not a huge deal in that respect. The European Parliament is not what makes the decisions in Europe. That is the Council of Ministers, which is the group of prime ministers and presidents that rule the countries directly. Basically, they work by either unanimity or something called qualified majority voting from time to time in order to decide what happens at the European level. So what normally happens is you have a European Union election, the EP, European Parliament, that goes one way, and then everyone takes a breather, and then we get back to politics as normal, where the far right doesn't do nearly as well. Now, what Macron is doing is betting that that is still the case, and he can take the political wind out of the sails of what was basically a protest vote in a very short period of time. No, I'm going to leave like 9 things behind. Anyway, so he's betting that history is on his side on this one, and we're going to find out real soon, in just a few days. Okay. Second, Macron's personal leadership is not on the docket here. It's not on the chopping block. It's not at risk in any way, because the political system of France is significantly different from the one in Germany or in the United States. So here, you vote for a president. In Germany, you vote for a party. Here, the president controls foreign and economic policy. In Germany, you vote for the party, you get coalitions within their parliament, the Bundestag, and that coalition decides who the prime minister is. So you have a singular leader in both places who makes most of the decisions. What have I forgotten? Apples. Not how it works in France. In France, it's split. So the parliament selects the prime minister, and they are responsible for domestic affairs. But there's a separate set of elections for the presidency, and that's when Macron has been elected independently. So let's assume for the moment that Macron was right. Well, then the far right will be shown to be a flash in the pan, and they go back to old politics. Let's assume for the moment that Macron is wrong, and these snap elections that he's called go the other way. Well, then the government falls, we get a new prime minister, but Macron is still president. And in that scenario, we got something called cohabitation, which basically means that not everybody agrees. In France, whoop-dee. So I don't want to make this out for more than it is. And even in the worst case scenario for the Macron government, you basically would have a split prerogative. The real issue, where this may matter, is going to be in national elections, most notably in Germany, later. But that's going to be 3 years away, unless, of course, the government falls. And then we have a different problem.